Hey, and we are live for the Day at Work series a little bit later in the afternoon with Colleen Deere from American Corporate Partners. Thanks for joining and being so patient through that silly video that I absolutely love. It's hilarious.
Yes, the only thing better than one Mike Quinn is 12 Mike Quinns. So glad we got to see that.
So it's kind of funny. That is actually so JD Duvall, who's down at the bottom. He was at one of my Mastering LinkedIn webinars
Okay.
and just recorded like 12 videos of me at different times and made that and like put it up. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so original. Number one. Number two, I had no knowledge I was being recorded.
Oh, good.
Uh, yeah, so it's authentic. And then Jose Velasquez is a radio DJ, and he was like, I got this. And he mentioned that song, and I just said, well, that's appropriate because people may think I'm cool-ish from my LinkedIn, but
Not
I'm
anymore.
no, God, it's the real me. I'm a dork. I'm a goofball that just writes well on LinkedIn. So, but
Yeah,
thank you for agreeing with me, though, Colleen. I appreciate that.
not a problem.
So I guess I'm really excited about this because I'm not only a fan of American Corporate Partners, I'm also an alumni and on the advisory council. So I'm truly a huge believer in what you guys do. But for those that may be new, can you talk through what ACP is about?
Sure thing. Yeah, and first off, thank you for having me, and thank you for all you've done to help us build ACP. You've been a huge supporter and help, and can't do it without you and really the help of many other people who've helped grow the organization. But yeah, kind of ACP in a nutshell. What we do is we're a mentoring program that pairs up transitioning veterans as well as active duty military spouses with mentors from the corporate world. So one way to think of us is almost like a big brothers, big sisters, but in this case, as we like to joke around in the office, your little brother might be a 220-pound Marine. So it is, though, a very similar concept. And we actually had a gentleman from Big Brothers, Big Sisters, New York, who worked with our founder to kind of help us think through the initial structure of how the mentoring should work. And so it's very high touch, like Big Brothers, Big Sisters. It's, one conversation a month. It's a long-term mentorship. So you're paired with somebody, but it's not like you have one conversation and then part ways. You really get to know each other on kind of a deeper, more personal level too. And that relationship lasts throughout the year. And then one of the neat parts about ACP and what makes us a little bit different, I think, is that throughout the course of that year, not only do you have your mentors support, but you also have ACP's staff support. So we have a team of 50 who are not actually in our office in New York City right now, but under normal circumstances, we're all based in New York. And our 50 staff members are dedicated to making sure the mentorship is successful. So it's, you and your mentor, but then also ACP staff who will be checking in. And, we put a lot of time and attention into making a good match, but then more importantly, following up with that match throughout the year to hear about how it's progressing, see if there are particular resources we can maybe add to enhance the dialogue, and really just be there for our participants to connect them with other people and or resources that might be helpful to them.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. I didn't know about the Big Brothers angle, but it makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's about building relationships, mentoring relationships, not just a phone call or a transaction. So,
Right. And, mentors are really important. And it's certainly not the type of thing that your ACP mentor has to be your only mentor. But I think, I've at least personally heard some advice of everybody needs to have their own personal board of directors. So I like to think of the ACP mentor as one member of that personal board of directors, somebody who's really in your corner to help you with kind of the nuts and bolts of everything from looking for the right job. But then once you get that job, how are you going to make sure you're successful in it? Because I think that can be overlooked sometimes, is that whole great news, I got the job, I don't need my mentor. But it's like, no, actually, that's when you need it more, because you need to make sure that that you're acclimated, that you're performing well, and that you can deal with some of the tricky situations that are undoubtedly going to come up in the journey.
Yep. No, I actually see that all the time. I see a lot of people kind of get that job. They're like, okay, I'm done.
Right.
They don't
Right.
realize that so much of your career progression is going to be based off of mentors, advice, having sponsors
Hmm.
that can speak on your behalf in some of um, those closed door sessions where they're deciding who goes where or who gets what promotion. So that's an incredible part. And what I particularly love about the ACP model also is two things. One, um, it, yeah, it's for a year, but I haven't met anybody that hasn't stayed in touch with their mentor after that year if they actually, put in the effort. And it does take a little bit of effort. And pardon me for the sun coming blaring in. And the other part that where I see a lot of success is when mentors start introducing mentees to their networks.
Hmm.
So it's not just a conversation with one person to help with your resume. It's a relationship where some mentors get invested in individuals and they want to make them successful, want to help them be successful, and start to like, hey, well, why don't you go talk to this person? Let me do an intro. And why don't you talk to this person? And that's just so incredible.
Yeah, and I think that that's very important, and that's something that we emphasize with all of our new mentors is, don't underestimate the power of your own personal network in your protege's journey, especially for veterans in our program who aren't sure what they want to do. I mean, how good is that to not only have your mentor's advice, but then have access? Think of your own network. I can't even gander at how many LinkedIn connections you have, but it is more than most people I know. So even think about that. If you're mentoring somebody, that person doesn't just have access to you. It's kind of who do you know? And one actually story that jumps into my head is in the early days of ACP. So Rupert Murdoch was actually one of our mentors, and he is a busy guy. He's probably not going to have an hour a month to spend with his veteran protege. But the most important thing that he did was when he first got paired with his protege, he walked out to his admin and he said, set up a meeting with John every single month with somebody in marketing, with somebody in sales, with somebody in finance, with somebody in HR. So that way, of course, the protege had access to Rupert, but more importantly, he had meetings lined up for the entire year with somebody from News Corp who could speak to those different areas of the company. And that veteran actually wound up going into sales, which wasn't necessarily what he thought he was going to do. He was a field artillery officer, but it was because of those meetings that were set up for him with Rupert's network that led to him landing that position, and something that he had never even considered before.
Can I sign up again?
Yeah.
Can you set me up with Rupert? I mean, like, oh, mind blown. Like, you can't, like, that person hit the lottery.
Right, exactly.
I have him set him up with all these people, and it's like hey, I want you to talk to them, and I want you to give them. You can't put a value to that.
You really can't, especially when you think about, and that's of course a great example. That's not going to be maybe the normal mentorship. But that being said, if you think about the value, if you were going to pay for a career coach, just Googling or looking in a Facebook group for a career coach, that person might charge, who knows, $250 an hour. But an ACP mentor is doing this for free. They're volunteering because this is a cause that's important to them. They care about helping transitioning military, and the people in their network do too. So you're getting all this for free, and ACP is going to be making the connection. So it helps make it easy for you as well.
And I'll share one of my experiences. So my mentor, Mary, she helped run HR for Novartis, the pharmaceutical company, and then changed management for Cisco.
Okay.
And never served.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that was fantastic to have someone that I would say things that made sense to me.
Right.
And she would say, I have no idea what you just said. And so, you know what I mean? So there was you didn't see it through that veteran lens.
Right.
And then from AdvisorNet, I actually got connected with Matt Weidmer from Deloitte. So Matt is amazing, still a mentor of mine to this day. But here's the partner that runs Deloitte's like $750 million advisory portfolio.
Right.
And I think, what did he have? 3 mentees, and like he's had 9 or 10, or probably like 20 by now, ACP sessions. Like he literally brought me in for an hour,
Right.
and has stayed in touch with me, has checked in on me
Hmm.
afterwards. And I, having come from EY, I know how valuable a partner at that level's time is, and how much they have on their plate, and the fact that he was so invested in this retired sergeant major, and the E6 and the O5 and the
Right.
to give some of his time really shows the quality of person he is, but also the impact you're having on the mentors that are coming in to work with ACP.
Yeah, yeah. And mentors ask all the time, sometimes they're nervous about taking part in a program like this because, like you said, maybe they haven't served themselves. So they think, oh, is this going to be a problem if I haven't reviewed a military resume before? And it's like, actually, that's an asset, because sometimes people, and I know we've talked about this before, they need some tough love. So to be able to have, a person who's a hiring manager who didn't serve, who maybe hasn't looked at a military resume before, to have that direct feedback before you actually start going and applying for jobs is huge. That benefit, for somebody to actually tell you point blank, this doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand. We need to figure out a way to translate this. I mean, much better to get that feedback before you've just sent that resume to 150 companies. So, we always let our mentors know. I would say actually 60% of our mentors haven't served. They might have some military connection, maybe a son or daughter served, or a niece or nephew, but a lot of our mentors are just folks who are very patriotic, and they happen to have high level positions within their company, and they're doing this because they really care. And that's something that we tell our mentors too. They ask me all the time, what advice do you give for preparing to be a successful mentor in the program? Like, what are the ingredients for success? And I always just say, it sounds kind of simple, but it's really just taking the time to get to know the person you're mentoring and actually caring about their success. And I think Matt Widmer is a perfect example that, he is a busy guy, but he's taking the time to text and call and reach out to his many proteges that he's mentored, because he really does care about their success. And he's not just doing this to do it. He wants, he could volunteer with other programs, but he's doing this because he really wants to see it through and make sure that these proteges are set up for success during the time he's working with them, but also afterward too.
Well, and now I just had a good question. It just made me have a question. So Harry is in South Korea right now tuning in, which is exciting.
Wow.
So can service members or military spouses or veterans that are overseas still participate in ACP?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think especially when you're serving overseas, there might be more limited opportunities to build a network and to make connections with folks in corporate America. So I would certainly encourage that. It reminds me of a veteran that was in our program back in the earlier days of ACP, and he actually used AdvisorNet from a ship in the Mediterranean. And he knew he was moving back to New York City when he got out. He was engaged, and he wanted to get his career, kind of that path all lined up when he got out. So from his ship in the Mediterranean, he reached out to probably 75 people on AdvisorNet, was able to make connections. And then that way, when he got back to New York, he had already done a lot of the legwork. He didn't just wait till he got back to say, I should probably start contacting some people. So yeah, I think certainly for people overseas, we welcome applications. And we also do have mentors who might be overseas as well. But especially in today's modern times where everybody is Zooming and texting, I think communication is even easier than it was maybe 5-10 years ago. Everybody's working virtually, and people are really accustomed to the time zone differences and making it work.
And I would say that I would have been willing, if I was overseas, and when I was overseas, I did this, to stay up late or get up early for an important phone call. And if it's a chance to talk to someone in a career, industry, company, location where I want to be, I mean, there's nothing that beats the face-to-face or the verbal conversation for building some kind of a connection.
Mhm.
or seeing the connections there, and then having someone provide some to be invested in your success. And a lot of people want to give back. I did just see that. So David said he just finished his 12th call today with his ACP mentor.
Nice.
So this is really exciting. But one thing I realized is you and I are talking about ACP and ACP AdvisorNet,
Mhm.
and we haven't explained what AdvisorNet, like what's the difference?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So, very question I should have probably answered before. But yeah, so we have two programs. So ACP is our original, our organization's name is ACP, but our bread and butter is our one-on-one year-long mentorship program. That's kind of the Big Brothers, Big Sisters like program I described. But a few years after we started ACP, we realized we also really need to scale up what we're doing just because it is the high touch program. It's fairly labor intensive. We have, like I said, the staff of 50 who manages. We have about 4,000 mentorships in the program right now, which is great. But there's more than 200,000 service members transitioning out each year. So what are we going to do for the other 246,000 of them that we're not reaching through the one-on-one program? So that's why we built AdvisorNet, which is kind of a mentoring light, if you will. There's no formal time commitment. It's kind of a come when you can. It's a Q&A site with a networking component. So it's a great way to ask career questions. So you can easily log onto the site, ask a question like, I've got a job interview coming up. Can anybody give me some sample questions that I should be preparing for? Or my resume is 7 pages. Would somebody be willing to look this over and give me some feedback? So you can ask pretty specific questions, but then the cool part of the site to me is what we call our community feature, where you can literally type in your zip code. There you go.
I'm getting really good at this stuff. So
Wow.
22033. How cool was that?
That was very impressive, Mike. Very impressive.
By the way, I'm so thrilled that I'm learning how to work computers. But I just typed in my zip code, 22033.
Perfect.
And
So
you can see, yeah, go ahead.
so you can see there, you've got somebody from Northrop Grumman, SAIC, you've got small and large businesses. You have Northern Virginia Community College, and these are actually all kind of extending out from your zip code. So it's almost like endless scrolling. You can just keep going and you'll just start to then see people maybe in DC or Maryland. So you can sort by experience level, as Mike is showing there. If you want somebody who's maybe a little more established, who is also in your zip code, you can find them. And then that green button there is for people to send a private message. So if you like what you see with Elizabeth Guevara, you can send her a message here and just say, hi, Elizabeth, just wanted to introduce myself. I saw your profile on AdvisorNet. You seem like a person who might be able to give me some advice. Would you be willing to hop on a call? So we see that all the time. So this is, and also one nice thing is you can have a one-on-one mentor, but also use AdvisorNet. So it's not mutually exclusive. But this to me is a really powerful tool that, you can, like I was saying before, be building your network from a ship in the Mediterranean and, be really contacting an unlimited amount of people. ACP is not going to stop you. If you see 50 people you want to reach out to, go for it.
And what I really like about this, so, I am very active on LinkedIn, and I'm telling people, find people in your desired industry, find people in your desired companies or locations that you have something in common with, and start reaching out like, hey, I saw you're an Army veteran, or you're a military spouse, or you went to my college. And that's nice, but you don't know who's got the time, or if they're willing to invest that time.
Right.
Everyone here on ACP AdvisorNet has volunteered to do this. So I'm assuming you get a much, much, much higher response rate from these individuals.
Yeah, we definitely do. And that's a great point is, yes, I get LinkedIn messages all the time from people I don't know. But like you said, unless there's some kind of compelling connection, I can't respond to all of them. But here, every advisor specifically is doing this because they care, they want to help, they're checking their messages. So that is the neat thing. And also from the advisor's point of view, they get to see who they're helping. So unlike maybe like a Yahoo Answers or kind of a just an internet message board. This is really personal. Like if you're wanting to contact this advisor, Justin Pearson, you really get to see a lot about him. You get a photo. My team is also moderating the site. We're not going to take down questions or answers based on our judgment. So if somebody asks a question like, is an online degree as good as an in-person degree? We're not going to remove an answer from, an advisor who says that the University of Phoenix is just as good as XYZ brick and mortar school. So we don't get in the middle of that. But if there's spam or if somebody posted something that was just rude or nasty, my staff is checking this really every hour to make sure that the community is behaving nicely. So that's another benefit of the site too, is you're not going to have to worry about spam or anything like that.
And so I showed Justin because he's a buddy of mine, and he's at AFMA, which is the American Armed Forces Mutual Aid Association. They're a nonprofit here in this area. But Justin's got over 30,000 connections, followers on LinkedIn, and you can reach him on LinkedIn, but his inbox is getting swamped. Whereas if you use AdvisorNet, he's getting an email.
Right.
Directly to him from AdvisorNet that's saying, Michael Quinn wants to, has a question or wants to see if we can chat about your transition or just get advice. So that's amazing. And then I guess while I'm here on ACP, just for people that want to register, acp-usa.org.
Yes.
And then if they want to join, here's where they join, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we try to make it really easy for people to get started with us. And it's not the type of thing where you're going to submit your application to a black hole. So you don't have to worry about that. And you also don't have to worry about submitting an application and it taking 6 months for us to get to you. So we really pride ourselves on being responsive, enthusiastic, and just passionate about what we do. So if you are a veteran looking to get involved here, it's super easy. I mean, it's literally just veteran mentoring program. It says here, apply now. You'll click on that.
There's the process.
Shows a little bit of the process here, just to kind of walk you through what to expect, but you can even apply on your phone. So you can easily, be kind of getting started right now. But yeah, you'll submit your application. You'll see in step 2, an ACP operations associate contacts you within 1 business day. Sometimes it's even within the hour. So we're really on top of things. We see all of the applications coming in real time. So that way we can get back to you right away. When we do reach out to you for that first initial contact, we're going to ask you when in the next week or so would you have 15 minutes for a brief phone call with our staff. So we'll make sure that it's set up so that way you can plan it. We're not going to catch you when you're, out with your kids at the park. We'll try to make sure it's pre-scheduled. And then during that phone call, we're really going to talk to you about what's important in your mentorship. What types of mentors are you interested in? What is difficult about your transition right now? Is it that you don't know what you want to do? Is it that you know what you want to do, but you're not sure which companies to approach? Is it that you're not getting interviews? Maybe your resume needs some work. Maybe you want to start a small business and you're not interested in going into corporate America. We get plenty of applicants who are looking to start up a business. So really, whatever the case may be, we will drill into that a little bit during the phone call. And you can also tell us about some preferences. So if you would really like to be mentored by a female business leader, let us know. If you would prefer a civilian mentor, or if you say, listen, I'm in the Marine Corps, I got to be mentored by a former Marine, we'll make that happen too. So you'll let us know what your preferences are, and then we get to work right away. So it usually takes maybe 4 to 6 weeks for us to find the best possible mentor for you. But sometimes it can be a lot quicker. If it really does depend on your preferences. We actually had a veteran tell us, listen, I only want to be mentored by somebody who has experience in kidnap insurance. So that is not typically a type of mentor that we have, thousands of mentors just waiting in the wings. But lo and behold, that veteran was patient, and it turned out that after about 2 or 3 months, we had a mentor come in from Aon Insurance who had specific experience in kidnapping insurance, and we made the pair, and it was extremely successful. So you never know. So that's a little bit of a crazy example there, but that's really what I mean by that kind of personalized, enthusiastic support from ACP. We really, really do want to make sure that everybody gets paired up with the right mentor for them.
And one thing I want to take, so Harry out in South Korea, I love he's participating, but he says he still has a couple years before retiring. Look, this is a 1-year mentorship. And what I tell everybody is if you're a couple years from retiring, start now, sign up now, because the biggest problem facing a lot of transitioning service members is figuring out what they want to do and building that network.
Right.
And it's a lot easier to build a relationship when you're just focused on learning. And there's not that stress of, I've got to get a job, I've got to get a job, I've got to get a job.
Right.
And so I think that, Harry, I would consider signing up now and having that conversation, because your mentor, might be 2 months from now, maybe 4 weeks, maybe 2 weeks, but you get that mentor, you've got a year with them, and then they're introducing you to other people. And you're really starting about that process ahead of time. And I also say, the transition typically takes 2 to 3 times longer than people will set aside for it. So if you think it's going to take a year, it's probably going to take you 2 to 3 years. And I see it happen time and time again. So that's my thought there. So we've gone through ACP AdvisorNet. We've gone through ACP. We showed people how to sign up. As I said, I'm also a client, like the Hair Club for Men. But Eric called me within a couple, like a day or 2 days. Eric Schlachter was my operations associate.
Right.
Called me. We chatted about my application. I think he sent me a little additional questionnaire. Like I filled in some additional data points, sent that back to him. And then he actually set me up with a mentor. And it just wasn't like the first mentor he wanted to do, just wasn't the right fit for us. And I just communicated. I was like, it was a small business person.
Okay.
And because he knew that I was thinking about starting a business, but I was like, I really want to focus on my professional career first.
Right.
And he's like, got it. And so like within a week later, they had another person. We had a call and I was like, yes, Mary is perfect. And then I love that Eric stayed in touch like clockwork. How's everything going? Have you talked to her yet this month? What did you guys talk about?
Right.
To make sure I didn't just say yes, yes, yes.
Right.
And it really, if we work with the program really works with us. So I love what you guys built.
Thanks. Yeah. And I do feel like that's kind of like the quote unquote secret sauce of ACP is that follow-up, because I'm sure many of us have participated in, maybe a corporate mentorship program where you get set up with somebody and that first conversation seems good, but then after that, it fizzles out and then it's sort of awkward of like, what do I do? Do I say something? I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but so what we do is kind of take that and figure out, well, what can we do to avoid that from happening? So that's why we try to be hands-on, but not in a too annoying of a way. So you'll hear from us, but not too often. And, a lot of times maybe at month 6, you kind of feel like, ooh, we might have run out of stuff to talk about. So that's where we jump in. So we'll say, hey, have you guys maybe watched a TED Talk together and then, maybe had a conversation about it? Or, hey, maybe take a look at our recommended reading list. Maybe there's a book that jumps out to the two of you that you'd like to read together and then maybe have a chat about it. Or, hey, mentor, have you introduced your veteran to, a friend or a colleague or a neighbor recently? Maybe you should think about doing that. So I think that by us kind of being there, kind of waiting in the wings to help with things, we can keep these relationships fresh. And like you said, it's not necessarily like you need to be wedded to the person for 12 months if you don't think it's working out. Just let us know. We won't take it personally if you think it's a bad match. Just let us know, and we'll go back to the drawing board.
And I think I just saw the Big Brother roots when he talked about just staying active, the recommendations, and everything. I see where all that comes together, which is exciting. So we're at 30 minutes and we never talked about your job, which happens on occasion, but I've never made it 30 minutes without discussing your job. So let's see if we can do that in a few minutes, just so people
Sure.
understand. So you are the executive director for American Corporate Partners.
I am. I am. So I started at ACP about 11 years ago, and I started in the operations associate job that you mentioned before. So how Eric would be checking in with you to see how your pair was functioning and kind of checking in throughout the way. That was my role. I started at ACP around the time my husband was leaving the Army. So it was really fortuitous that I just happened to be Googling transition resources for veterans and found ACP, saw that they were hiring, and said to my husband, like, this is literally what you need right now, because he was an artillery guy and he wanted to work in finance in New York City, and he was getting 0 interviews because he couldn't figure out how to tell that story. So it was a bit of a challenging time, but kind of simultaneously, he signed up for ACP as a protege. I started working at ACP, making pairs and monitoring them and checking in. And then in the past 11 years have really just kind of worn every hat at ACP and just taken on more responsibility. And now am working with our founder to really run the day-to-day of ACP.
No, I love it. So if we get into it, I think executive director sounds like a really cool title for a national nonprofit. I think a lot of transitioning service members may have a different idea of what that means.
Sure.
So, I mean, obviously there's a lot, there is prestige and, responsibility that comes with being an executive director for a nonprofit like ACP. But what does your role entail? What takes up the bulk of your time?
Sure. Yeah, it's kind of a combination of internal and external functions. Some glamorous, some not. I would say on the high end of the spectrum, glamorous might be me, running a session with corporate partners and Karen Pence, which I did 3 times in the last year. Maybe on the unglamorous side might be mailing out W-2s to my staff and waiting in line at the post office. So, I think it's one of those, it's especially at a smaller organization, like being comfortable wearing a lot of hats, being a little bit comfortable with ambiguity and kind of learning on the job. I don't have an MBA, but I feel like being immersed in a highly functioning, fast-paced nonprofit, you kind of have no choice but to learn. It's like, okay, I've never done payroll before, but yeah, of course, I'll figure out how to do that. And you kind of just jump in and figure out what needs to get done and how to do it. And if you can't do it yourself, who are the right people you can call to get advice from? I think anything that I'm doing typically is relating to 3 things: either figuring out how to get more mentors into the program, how to get more veterans to know about us,
There you go,
and
Linda.
then how to raise money to make it all happen. So if the task doesn't fit into one of those 3 things, then it's probably not something I should be spending a ton of time on. And that's, I think, any executive director of a nonprofit would say that they wish they had more hours in a day, but that's how I try to think about it, as like a lens of, if it's not directly related to one of those 3, then I should think about either delegating it or is it really that important? So
I think that's a great point. And I think a lot of transitioning service members, when they hear the words nonprofit, they think that it's just, we go out and do community service.
right.
They don't realize that. I don't think they really think about it to understand that nonprofits need money to run.
Right.
You need donations or some kind of income or revenue stream, money coming into the company to be able to pay 50 operations associates
Right.
and your salary and Tim Cochran's salary and everything else. Like, it'd be great if the world let us all do this stuff for free and we didn't have to worry about money ourselves, but it takes income to run an organization, the office space, the computers, the utilities, run payroll, the system that manages all your data, everything.
Right.
That's a lot of work to come in. And then, so you've got to get your corporate partners that want to participate, and they donate a lot of them to do that. And then to make them happy, you've also got to get the mentees on both sides, and then you have to bring it all together and make sure it's matched.
Right. Yeah, it's a bit of a seesaw because if I have, 10,000 mentors, but I haven't done a good job of promoting ACP, then what good have I done? So definitely a delicate balance that can always be improved, but it's something that I'm literally looking at daily. And yeah, to your point, I think that is a little bit of a misconception that I myself probably had. I mean, as an undergrad, I was a business major, so I kind of thought, oh, maybe I will work at a big company, but nonprofit hadn't really occurred to me actually until I found ACP, and now I'm kind of realizing, like you said, nonprofits are businesses. They're just a different type of financial structure, but they are run like a business. They have revenue, they have expenses, they have the same types of operational needs as a for-profit. It's just the purpose. And typically the work is more meaningful at a nonprofit, not always, but that is one of the things I love about working at ACP and being in the nonprofit sector is like I actually see the results of my work in real time. So it's really gratifying.
Yeah, you're changing lives. I was chuckling because it was a perfect example of how your operations associates teams work. We got Linda said, I retire in 9 months, definitely need a corporate mentor. And immediately Hallie popped in with, here's the link on the thread. So, and even Harry said, I like how Hallie threw that link in there just as fast as sought out guidance. I will tell you that is typically how the operations associates respond. There's a lot of positive energy up there. And honestly, this has been a great session. We're getting close to the 40-minute limit I've set for almost every single one, Colleen. So before we sign off, I guess two things. If somebody has questions, are they able to reach out to you on LinkedIn or are you on AdvisorNet?
Of course, I am always on AdvisorNet. I check it even on the nights and weekends, so I'm always out there. But yeah, definitely active on LinkedIn too. So anyone can feel free to send me a message, and I'll get back to you really quickly. I love talking to potential proteges and potential mentors too. If you're out there and you think you might want to serve as a mentor, we'd love to have you. So definitely reach out.
Fantastic, and they don't have to be from a Fortune 500 to be able to serve as a mentor, right?
No, not anymore. So we have diversified our mentor pool. So we are able to take individuals now as mentors. So, would love to see some folks raise their hand and hopefully sign up.
Oh, that's incredible. And then I guess last one, I usually like to end with like, what is your number one piece of advice? I'm assuming it's going to be find the right mentor, but for anybody in the midst of a career transition and military spouse, 24% unemployment, veterans, transitioning service members, what is your number one piece of advice?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think it would be it's never too late to get started. So I think like we talked before about this individual who might want to get started 3 years to prepare for his transition, but please, if you've been out even for 5-10 years and you still feel like you're stuck in your career, please reach out to ACP. It's almost more important that you do that. So by no means do you need to think about this as only for something that can help you when you're kind of going through TAP. This is a program for you regardless of when you transitioned. As long as you've served since 2001, you're eligible as a veteran. So even if you procrastinated a little bit, don't worry, we are here to help.
Yeah, I mean, being a veteran doesn't have an expiration date, so I love that. So Colleen, thank you so much for spending a big chunk of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Really appreciate everything you do. I'm saying that as an alumni, and how it impacted my life and the thousands of other people you helped in 2020 alone. So everybody else there, please check out ACP, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, everyone.